Bill enters an elevator with two men already inside. The elevator is about to close when John scampers for it. Bill is carrying flowers, and John questions whether he is taking them to his wife. The man says yes, but John calls him out. He knows that the man is having an affair, and for this reason, his wife had hired the other two men in the elevator to kill him. The two hitmen try to reach for their weapons, but John is swift. Gunshots are heard, and as the elevator opens, the two men have been incapacitated. With Bill safe, John disappears. John reports to Mr. Finch about the attempted elevator attack while following him. Finch informs him that there might be a new number on the list, and before John can catch up with him, he disappears. Detective Carter arrives at the elevator crime scene and seems interested in the man in a suit, but the details are sparse. John meets Finch at a cemetery, where Finch explains that the new number on the list is special. The owner, Teresa Whitaker, died 2 years ago alongside her family. They were all brutally murdered, so Finch orders John to find out why her number is showing up if she is dead. The next scene is a flashback from June 2002, where Finch is meeting Nathan Ingram. Nathan was the face of Finch's company, while Finch stayed in the shadows. Finch then explains to him about the project he was carrying out for the government, and at that particular time, the machine had only covered New York. The machine listened to phone conversations, read emails, and facial recognition. Finch explained that the next step was to teach the machine to distinguish terrorists from normal citizens based on the data collected. The entire project was estimated to take 4 to 5 years. Present day, John meets Finch at a dock. Finch explains that that is where Teresa Whitaker was last seen alive when her family went on a weekend sail. Grant Whitaker was a real estate developer, and when the market crashed, he faced losses in 14 properties. According to the police reports, Grant killed his 18-year-old son, his daughter Teresa, and his wife before turning the gun to himself. All three but Teresa's body were recovered, and the police presumed her dead. Finch suspects Teresa is still alive because that is the only way the machine could have picked up her number. John plans to look for police reports to understand what happened. By looking at police reports, he means coercing Detective Fusco to get him the files. Considering all the dirt John has on him, Fusco is still under his thumb and has no choice. As John watches a news report from the time of the murder, he suggests that Grant may not have killed his family, but someone else was paid to do it. He, however, wonders why Teresa, if alive, did not reach out to her relatives. From the police reports, John finds out that Teresa was once arrested with a boy named Deacon Page for vandalism. Teresa might have gone to him for help. Time is of the essence, and John and Finch have to divide roles if they want to find Teresa alive. Finch goes to Elizabeth Whitaker's residence disguised as an insurance agent. Elizabeth is Teresa's aunt, but has since been divorced from Derek, Grant's brother. To get more information about them, Finch claims that Elizabeth and Derek were listed as next of kin in a life insurance policy by the Grants. He asks for Derek's whereabouts, but Elizabeth says that he left after the divorce and things were never the same after the murders. Elizabeth shows genuine concern for Teresa and even wishes that the police could find her body at the very least. Detective Carter is still looking for more information on the man in a suit, but all files are completely redacted. Meanwhile, John is looking for Deacon. After spotting him, he grabs his phone and, while pairing it with his, asks Deacon about Teresa's whereabouts. Deacon tells him that she died alongside her family and denies knowing anything about her. As soon as John leaves, Deacon texts Teresa and tells her that the police are after her. John sees the message too and looks around for Teresa. Teresa runs and John goes after her on the busy street. Teresa attacks John with a pocket knife and disappears. Finch is making his way into a building where he works. Despite being a multi-million business owner, he disguises himself as a software engineer in his own company, with his supervisor even ordering him around. John has, however, found out about his day job and is astounded at how well he blends in. John informs Finch that Teresa is alive and has been skimming account numbers and pins from ATMs to survive. Finch says that he will track her once she tries to sell them online. He also notes that they must look into Derek more carefully, as he may be connected. Grant's finances may also give him a clue, so he plans to look into them as well. John proposes to look into the hitman who killed the family. Detective Fusco takes John to a joint where he can inquire about hiring hitmen. He gets inside, and after a small altercation, he leaves with a lead. He calls Finch and informs him that the hitman in the Grant's murder was Solnick, who is now in jail for another crime. Through a glass partition, Solnick tells John that he indeed killed the Grants, but he has a code and does not kill kids. He admits that he let Teresa live and asked her to hide. He had told a cellmate a few weeks ago that he did not kill Teresa, hence the threat to Teresa's life. The people who hired Solnick in the first place will stop at nothing to make sure Teresa is dead as well. Solnick, however, has never met with them and therefore does not know their identity. John relays this information to Finch, and they wonder why these people are hell-bent on ensuring a teenager is dead. Finch discovers that Grant Whitaker was the sole investor in all his properties except one where he partnered with Landale Financial. John is spying on Landale Financials when he spots Teresa's uncle Derek in the company. Before he can understand what Derek is doing there, Finch tells him that he has traced Teresa's address. John gets to the location, and before he can get Teresa to trust him, the hired hitman joins them, and an altercation ensues. He is about to shoot Teresa when John shoots at him, saving her. The hitman had a vest on, so he was unharmed. Teresa decides to run again, but John convinces her she can trust him. John takes her to a hotel where she can lay low until he figures out who is after her. He asks her whether she knows who might target her, but she has no idea. She, however, hints at not trusting her uncle Derek, noting that her dad blamed him before he was killed. Finch then joins them, and John informs Teresa that he will take care of her as he needs to keep investigating Landale and Derek's involvement. Derek is staggering out of a bar when John sneaks up on him. While Elizabeth is trying to reach Derek to no avail, the hitman after Teresa is tapping her phone. John takes Derek to the spot where his brother's body was dumped. Derek tells John that Grant wanted to buy a piece of land in Brooklyn, ruined by an oil spill. The government had promised to clean the land, and Grant was certain it would increase its value afterward. He, however, did not have enough money to purchase all the pieces, and that's when Derek introduced him to Landale Financials. The government took a long time to clean up the land, and Landale was impatient. They eliminated Grant and his entire family to cash out. The government later cleaned the parcel, and it is now worth 50 times the buying price. Derek was made the administrator of probate. John deciphers that Teresa is the legal heir of the property, and that's why they are still after her. Derek is shocked that Teresa is still alive, and John leaves him drowning in guilt. At the hotel, Finch tells Teresa about his visit to Elizabeth's house and how her aunt misses her. He encourages her to reach out to her aunt, as you never know the value of a loved one until you lose them. The next scene is a flashback to 2007, when Nathan first finds out that the machine is not doing anything about the irrelevant list. Finch explains to Nathan that the machine cannot distinguish between national security threats and irrelevant ones. Finch further notes that the only way to solve the irrelevant malicious intents is by deleting every number after midnight. Derek finds the assassin hired by Landale waiting for him in his house. After what seems like hours of torture, Derek is being questioned about Teresa's whereabouts. He refuses to give out any details and is shot in the head. John informs Finch that Calhoun is behind the hit on Teresa. He wants the entire property to himself and will stop at nothing until Teresa, the legitimate heir, is dead. While they are talking on the phone, Teresa sneaks off. Finch catches up with her and begs her to trust him since it's unsafe for her out there. In the meantime, John is watching Calhoun broker a deal to sell the land to the city council for residential purposes. Detective Carter then finds Derek's body, with Teresa's photo stuffed in his mouth. As she plans to find out who Teresa is, Teresa calls her Aunt Elizabeth, but doesn't say a word. Consequently, the assassin uses the wiretap to determine where Teresa is calling from. No sooner had the assassin informed Calhoun that Teresa had been found than John came crashing into his vehicle. As Calhoun crawls out of the wreckage, John orders him to call off the hit on Teresa, but he says it's too late. John immediately tells Finch to get into safety, with the assassin already in the lobby. After disabling the security cameras, he cuts out the lights to determine which room Finch and Teresa are in. They trick him into getting into a different room while they make a run for it. With the elevators not working, they reach a dead end. When the assassin has them cornered, Finch begs Teresa to use the fire escape, but she decides to stand by him. The killer is pointing a gun toward them when John saves the day, shooting him in the knees. John calls Detective Carter and asks her to meet him. Carter positions undercover officers at different points to help her nail down John, but only finds Teresa waiting for her. John and Finch watch from a distance as she gets help, then go in different directions. Calhoun is later arrested. Carter tries to get more details about the man in a suit from Teresa, but she says she was too traumatized to remember anything. She is then reunited with her Aunt Elizabeth. John looks for Harold at his day job, but finds his desk empty. To what lengths is Harold willing to go to hide his identity?